All right, presenters, we are nearing the top of the hour. Are you all ready?
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah, I think we're ready to go whenever.
All right, very good. And this, of course, is the lightning round for this session of the NCLA virtual conference. Under normal circumstances, I would probably speak at great length about my new friends and their roles at their universities. But because this is the lightning round, I'm going to go ahead and just turn it over to our presenters and let them share a little bit about themselves and get started into the session. I will be monitoring the chat for those of you who are new to Zoom, or if you have any issues, type it in the chat, or if you just have a really thoughtful question about the presentations, I'll kind of collect those and share those with the presenters at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over and we'll get started right away.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you all for attending our lightning talk. My name is Suchi Mohanty. I'm head of the House Undergraduate Library at UNC Chapel Hill.
And I'm Kate Kennedy. I am a graduate assistant at the undergraduate library and also a grad student at UNC School of Information and Library Science.
So today we're going to spend a little bit of time talking to you about our new workshop series called Adulting 101. And I think because it's a lightning talk, we're going to go through the presentation and take all of your questions at the end. So if you do have any questions, go ahead and chat them in. Otherwise, I think we'll have time to take them at the end of the presentation. So you might be asking, why Adulting 101? And really, we found ourselves having a series of conversations with students and staff members. And we felt that students had some unmet needs that could all be traced back to information literacy skills. And these were needs that weren't being addressed in the academic classroom. And so we developed this series to support the whole student in and outside the classroom, but again, to show them how responsible use of information could help them manage their lives both at and beyond the university. And I will take a minute to address the hot topic, millennial burnout. I don't know if anyone read the prominent article on BuzzFeed. This workshop series is not a response to millennial burnout. This series is meant to be a proactive opportunity for students to develop life skills that they may not have the opportunity to develop in other areas. We're not seeing any deficiencies in our students. Rather, we're just giving them an opportunity to develop skills that they're not having the chance to develop elsewhere. Okay. So as we were structuring the workshop series, we had 3 guiding principles that we came back to. Number 1, don't reinvent the wheel. No university has unlimited resources, and we in libraries certainly don't. It was really important for us to partner with other campus units that were doing work in these areas so that we could each kind of take advantage of our strengths and contribute in those ways. Number 2, use an active hands-on learning model. We didn't want to just lecture students for an hour and then hope they would apply these skills and concepts on their own time. We wanted to give them time to work in a structured environment so that we were there to support them as needed, but we really wanted to get their hands dirty. Third, assess, iterate, and improve. This was definitely a learning experience for us as well, and we've gotten really constructive formal and informal feedback from our participants and our campus partners. And we've incorporated all that feedback as we've reached out to additional campus partners and as we've been developing new workshops.
So as Suchi said, in order to put students at the center of the adulting workshops, we knew that we really needed to collect their feedback throughout the entire process of developing this series. And that started with the initial planning phase. So there are 2 sort of outcomes we wanted from this assessment. First, we wanted to find out which specific adulting topics students would be most interested in attending a workshop to learn more about. And then second, because the term adulting has been used often in the media in a sort of disparaging context, We wanted to provide some opportunities for students to really define the term for themselves and also explain its relevance to their everyday experiences and their long-term goals. So we set out to gather this feedback in the summer of 2018 by distributing surveys to undergraduate students in 3 unique settings. So first, we wanted to leverage the contact that we already have with students at orientation fairs that occur throughout the summer. We asked staff from across the libraries to poll students attending these orientations about their interest in different adulting topics. And you can find an example of this survey in a Google folder that we'll share with all of you at the end of the presentation. Next, we surveyed student employees, both of UNC libraries and then some of our campus partners as well. And we were able to use a longer version of the survey for these students, which really gave us an opportunity to gather even richer qualitative data. And then again, we have an example of this survey that we'll share at the end of the presentation. Finally, we have a whiteboard at the undergraduate library where we regularly pose questions to students about everything from their favorite class or research topic to like the cutest animal or their favorite movie. And students get really excited about writing answers on the whiteboard. So over the summer, during summer sessions 1 and 2, we asked students to talk about what adulting means to them through the whiteboard. And we got a lot of really interesting responses that way as well. So as you can see from this word cloud, the qualitative survey feedback that we got showed students define adulting in many ways, and their insightful reflections really helped expand our vision and plans for the workshop series. A theme across many of the responses that we received was about the importance of balance and mental health. Students really emphasized how important it is to manage their stress as college students, to prioritize self-care, and then also to make time for friends and family and people that they love in their lives. Many of students' responses were also very philosophical, and they spoke to sort of the struggles and contradictions of existing as an independent person in contemporary society and everything that entails. And then finally, many of the responses emphasized financial literacy quite a lot, but also talked about the connections to social, emotional, and physical health as well.
So when we looked at all the data, we found that, and we did ask students to pick everything of interest to them, we really found that financial literacy topics by far were the greatest, had the greatest interest. About 60% of the responses related to financial literacy topics. About 22% related to health literacy topics. Again, going back to that focus on work life or home life balance, the concern about wellness and mental health issues. And about 18% of the responses related to what we were calling kind of global literacies or civic literacies. So topics related to campus activism, political advocacy, news and media literacy. So we have these 3 buckets that we do try to fit all of our programming into.
So based on our initial survey feedback, we kicked off the Adulting 101 series with a workshop about researching health topics online. So this class was structured as small group and also class discussions where students were able to evaluate online health sources for bias, accuracy, and other sort of information literacy criteria. And then in January, we were able to reprise this workshop with a mental health focus based on students' requests for that topic. And we also partnered with UNC's chapter of the student organization Active Minds for that workshop. We've also offered 2 financial literacy workshops. So in the fall, we had a basic budgeting workshop for students that was part of an existing workshop series offered by the Office of the Dean of Students and UNC Financial Literacy Consortium. And then in March, we are planning a workshop with that same set of partners that will focus on credit reports and credit scores and financial literacy skills related to that. And then finally, for the civic literacy component, students were really interested in political advocacy and engagement topics. So in the fall, leading up to the midterm elections, we offered a workshop where students researched constitutional amendments on the North Carolina ballot, and then also political candidates. In the spring, we're shifting our focus a little bit towards the career area. So we're partnering with University Career Services to offer a workshop on building an online professional presence and LinkedIn.
So some of the takeaways from the workshop so far, we've had pretty good attendance. About 60 students have attended those first 4 workshops. And I think it's particularly impressive that 100% of the students who've completed our post-workshop survey have indicated that they would consider attending another workshop. So you know that we're on the level and we're not misleading you at all. It's really about 83% that definitively said, yes, I would attend another workshop, and 17% indicated maybe. So really strong feedback and interest in the program. In particular, they really praised the online resources that we made available. Kate created a research guide for via LibGuides for each workshop that had the worksheets and handouts that we referenced in the class, but it also had resources that the students could follow up with if they wanted to learn a little more independently. And they really appreciated the hands-on approach. We got particular feedback that they appreciated the opportunity to engage with the concepts being presented. So a little bit of feedback, again, from our post-workshop surveys. Again, students recognize that these are topics that may not otherwise be discussed in their everyday lives, so they saw the value in that opportunity. And again, they're feeling a little better equipped to go out into the world with confidence. So looking at their time at Carolina and their time beyond. So lessons learned, of course. I mentioned earlier it was really important for us to work with campus partners, but that brings its own set of challenges. So I think one thing we really learned was that we need to stay in close communication and have really clear expectations with our new partners. We want to remember to keep these workshops college student centered. Some of our campus partners do engage with outside organizations, and those organizations may not have a college student focus necessarily. So just reminding ourselves and our campus partners that college students are truly our primary audience, and we need to keep their needs front and center. We're looking at new ways to advertise these workshops. We use social media and print advertising primarily, but we're looking a little bit more at creating Instagram stories, just promoting the concept of adulting in general through our social media. Again, trying to make students a little more aware. Reminding students to bring their laptops. Again, these are hands-on workshops. Students are expected to engage. So we are really trying to make it obvious that these are active sessions and that students need to be prepared to participate. And then again, we're really trying to meet students where we are. Kate mentioned that we wanted to give them the opportunity to define what adulting is. Kate was really, she had the opportunity to visit some student organizations to get feedback from them directly and to promote our events. We're also trying to advertise the workshops on the campus co-curricular transcript platform. We had previously been using a library platform to manage registration, and that was easier for us, but not so intuitive for the students, because that's not where they're looking for learning opportunities. So again, just shifting our focus to be more student-centric. So that is our presentation. As Kate mentioned, we do have a Google folder that should be accessible to all of you with supplemental information. Kate's put in some examples of our worksheets and our surveys. And if you have any particular questions or you want to see additional materials, we can upload them to that folder after the presentation. But I think we're open for questions now.
I'll take an opportunity to ask you guys a question if it's all right.
Yes.
I really enjoyed this presentation. I wonder also if there's a conversation sort of in the UNC system about sort of digital badges and badging efforts.
Mhm.
I was just curious because the more you talked about kind of these areas that you're including in adulting, it seems like those naturally might make their way into some kind of badging opportunities for financial literacy or areas like that. Have you had any thoughts about growing your program into something like that?
So this year one has been an articulated pilot phase. I think we really wanted to see if there was genuine interest from our campus partners and from students. And I think we've seen very positive attention. I don't know that we've gone as far as to think about badging.
We did have a conversation with a colleague from the student union who is really engaged in assessment efforts through Heal Life, which is the co-curricular transcript platform that Suchi mentioned. And students do have opportunities to sort of build pathways and demonstrate their experiences outside of the classroom using that tool. So I imagine in the future we'll engage with Heal Life even more and find new opportunities, which might include that sort of badging or micro-credential system, or we might take a different direction.
Yeah.
Excellent. And in the chat, haven't got any questions, but some really positive comments. One of them was, this was really great and really want to start something like that on our campus, UNC FSU. So
Cool.
Very positive comments. Any other questions before we transition from one group of speakers to another? Don't be shy. We have time.
And you can certainly contact Kate and I if anything pops up later.
All right. Well, that sounds great. Thank you guys so much. Sam, do you want to go ahead and sort of get your sort of presentation ready, and we'll get ready for that?
Yep. So is everything looking okay?
Looks good.
Okay. Okay. So, hello everyone. My name is Sam Harlow. I am the online learning librarian at UNC Greensboro. So today we're going to do a quick talk about creating library OER resources. I think that there was a talk at 11 about OER in North Carolina and beyond. I know I went to a great session where we talked about incorporating more with online courses, and OER was mentioned a lot. So again, this quick lightning talk is really just to talk about what we as librarians can do to make our stuff open. So I'm going to talk about just a quick intro to OER, but I'm not going to harp on it. And then we're going to talk about Creative Commons licenses and repository. I'm going to give you some links, some resources made by librarians, and we're going to talk about, issues with OER. So, not that everything should be open. So here's a brief talk about, a brief introduction about OER. If you guys have questions in the chat, I'm opening up that now. So let me know. But again, I assume that if you're coming to a brief lightning talk about OER that we're all kind of on the same page. But one thing in terms of when I talk about OER and when I talk to OER to our faculty is these 5 R's of openness, right? That really for things to be truly open, you need to retain, reuse, revise, remix, and redistribute your materials and give people the ability to do that with yours. So of course, OER, I feel like every session I go to about online learning or creating online learning objects that we talk about OER, and just some reasons of why that is, of course, are the cost of textbooks are on the rise, which brings up a very important conversation and relevant conversation about teaching in higher education in terms of making it more inclusive for all people in terms of demographics, where people are coming from. There's more and more assessment and outreach to first-generation students, veterans, all these kind of student success initiatives. And making our stuff accessible for everyone isn't just about making them accessible for for, visual impaired learners and things like that. It's also about making things accessible to everyone, no matter where they come from. And more OER positions are kind of popping up, like OER librarian positions to help with us, to help with these kind of things. I'm an online learning librarian, so I help with these things a lot. All of these things are just why I'm talking about that today. And then lastly, again, I think there was a whole 45-minute session on this. There's tons of stuff going on right now in North Carolina for OER stuff, maybe at your institution with what you're doing, but also for even nationally, but also in North Carolina. NC Live has a whole open education initiative going on right now. This presentation has a link there that you can go to if you haven't heard of it. But again, this makes it all very relevant. So here's what I'm really going to talk about today. So since OER is important, since it's going on in a lot of different places, libraries should be taking the lead on this, right? In terms of running workshops, leading initiatives. I think it's really common right now that librarians are running workshops, doing stuff with OER, but I think what maybe we need to work a little bit more on, or maybe we're all doing it and this lightning talk is unnecessary, but is creating these CC licenses and adding our stuff to repositories. So just if you want to let me know in the chat, or have any of you in this room, are you making online learning objects, and are you already adding CC licenses to your online learning object? You can let me know in the chat. You can also let me know if you've added your stuff to repository, or if your institution has a repository of online learning objects that include open stuff. So you guys can put that in the chat. So as that's happening, I did want to show you, just in case people aren't doing this, that the big thing that we can do as librarians is, as you make online learning objects, we can easily add Creative Commons licenses onto them to make it clear to other librarians and to faculty what can be used and remixed and redistributed. So I'm going to show you how that's done. So I'm, again, kind of assuming that we're all kind of on the same page about Creative Commons licenses. There are licenses that we can put on things, and that our faculty can put on things to let things be, if they're going to be put on a website or repository, to make it really clear what it is. So they have at creativecommons.org.choose a place where you can just, they ask you questions, they make it really clear. Right? So do you want to allow adaptations? Yes. Do you want to allow commercial uses of your work? Yes. Or no. And then what I usually do too is I say yes, as long as others share alike, because I want to keep my stuff open. They also have a part here that if you click here, you can say a title of your work. You can say your name to make it really clear what people, how to attribute you. You could link to a stable URL, and then you could link to another URL, like if your institution has a URL for for their kind of license for their repository or that kind of thing. So see, as we do this, right, now you get this nice tag of, this is my OER presentation for NCLA by Samantha Harlow, and then a Creative Commons license, and it even gives you embed code. You can copy this, right? You could, right click, copy image, throw it in a presentation. It links out to it. You could add a link. So if you click on this, right, it goes to this page, and then they are very clear about what kind of license it is. So again, this is just a simple thing that you can do at your institution as librarians. So at UNC Greensboro, we are trying to add stuff, add this tag more and more to our stuff to make it really clear. So here's an example of infographics that we've made in the Research Outreach and Instruction Department, where you can, we use the embed code, right, to make it really clear, and we link to PDFs. So again, you can see. So we let liaisons choose their own license, but again, we're making it really clear to people that if you would like to use our scholarly and popular sources infographic, that's great. But it would be nice to share alike, and also maybe give credit to Maggie Murphy and Jenny Dale. So this is just something you can do easily within LibGuides or anywhere where embed code, or even if you don't have one, you can easily copy the license and throw it onto a presentation or into a video. It also could go at a YouTube video and more. So that's just kind of the thing I mostly want to talk about in terms of what we as librarians can be doing to our online learning objects to make it really clear, and also to model for faculty. So of course, then you can then add your stuff if you like it, if it's quality, if you've checked it for accessibility issues, into different repositories. So some ones that we use and we like to use for inspiration is ACRL, Framework for Instruction Sandbox. Project Cora is also a good one for instructional materials and creating online learning objects to go a little bit outside the library, but they do have some library stuff. And of course, many more. These are just some good ones that I like to start with because I do instruction online related to the framework. So this ACRL framework one is nice because you can go in and look at the resources and search. You can search by license. So if you didn't want to ever include these all rights reserved, you could go in and look for non-commercial, no derivative, non-commercial license, share alike, and apply and look there. You can also, of course, do it by the frames, research type, discipline, etc. So you can see here already I'm getting some stuff where I can find worksheets, etc., to find inspiration for in terms of making my own online learning objects. And again, you as a librarian could add to this. It's not a peer-reviewed thing. You just have to create an account. So that's just one example. And Project Cora is another that you should check out if you haven't already seen it in terms of, again, adding your stuff to it. So, the last one slide to look at here is, sorry, my screen's kind of freezing up. Okay, there it is. Sorry. Whoa, so many things are happening. Bear with me. This is the first time I've presented within Canvas, in Canva. So, lesson learned. But you can also create toolboxes for librarians to learn more about OER, where to find stuff. So here's some links to examples. OER Commons is, of course, a large OER repository, but they do have a section on library media that includes things on plagiarism and things like that, that, again, all of our institutions are already making these tutorials. So to add your stuff into there is great. There's not a whole lot in there right now, so if we could be adding to that, that would be great. This Virginia Tech one is a LibGuide geared just towards librarians working with OER, where to find OER, webinars about OER. So again, it's for librarians. And then this example from Duke University is that within their institution, their instruction department is, does a lot of different things, and they pull together a website where they share resources about what they're doing, handouts, tips and tricks, and they put it publicly online so that we could, everyone could look at it. So again, that's an example of where you would want to contact them or give them, credit for whatever you're adapting, but again, kind of making your stuff open through kind of creating your own repositories as well of stuff. So of course, OER is not perfect. Again, I'm kind of assuming that you're coming into this having some background into OER, but the big ones, right, are quality. There's not enough out there. What's out there isn't perfect. Not everyone's checking, which means not everything's accessible, right? Like maybe you haven't alt tagged all your images, but you put it in a database. Maybe your video is not closed caption, et cetera, et cetera. Also, OER, it's open, but I think there's a lot of confusion where, faculty especially, and maybe even librarians are using copyrighted images or not giving images or resources enough credit, and then they're putting stuff online. That's a dangerous zone, right? Because just because you made something open doesn't mean that it's not violating some kind of copyright law. So we as librarians need to be cautious about that with our work, but also educate faculty on that work. So another thing would be you maybe don't have institutional support or money to do these things in terms of the time it takes. Time is really probably the largest thing in terms of librarians making our stuff. open. But I was hoping by showing this Creative Commons choose, showing how it can be applied to LibGuides really easily is one thing we can do quickly, right? It doesn't take much time. I quickly created my license within about less than a minute, and it's something that we can be doing with our online learning objects to share. And then also adding things to repositories doesn't take much time. But then working with your instructional designers, online learning librarian, anyone on campus who can help you with the accessibility part of it, quality checks, things like that, also things. And then the last thing to think about is not everything should be open. Maybe you made something that is really specific to your institution that you don't want to share, that, you know, especially that works with faculty, right? Like they're not going to want to always publish all their stuff online. That's okay. And just be clear about that. So if you use some licenses on some things and on others, you create a license or put information on there saying, you know, no, this is attributed in a different way. That's okay as well. So now we're wrapped up. So this is a link to the this presentation, which has some of the links. Canva's a little bit buggy on how they do the links in Canva, but I did put out the URLs there if you want to look at it that way. And yeah, this would be a point too where if you have any questions about this or if you have any suggestions and want to talk about what you're doing at your university as librarians or as instructional designers in terms of making your stuff open or the issues you have with it, I would love to hear from other people. Thank you.
We got a quiet group this afternoon, don't we?
And if you have any questions for the other presenters as well, I'm sure that they would be happy to talk as well.
Do you see the chat?
So Kate asked, I was wondering how you do outreach education for faculty. Great question. We do workshops, right, where we educate people on OER. We also really try to do a big push about, we use videos of students talking about the cost of textbooks and the cost of course materials, our own students. And then we're really flexible about how we talk about OER in terms of, you know, just lowering the cost for students. So we also use it as a conversation of like, yeah, maybe there's not a lot of like physics stuff out there on OER, but you know, here's how we could add some permalinks to ebooks. We could purchase some ebooks for your department. So we are willing to also shift the conversation. So we run workshops through a program we do, which I think Beth probably talked about in her presentation, where we offer mini grants to faculty if they're willing to alter their course to get rid of, to lower the cost of textbooks. So that is through our provost office. We get a pot of, I think, around $15,000. And if faculty show us, like, we can take a textbook that 100 students are buying, you know, so it costs all this money and we can bring it down to $5 or $0. They will get the money. We offer them $1,000. It's like a stipend. So we run our education workshops through that program. And then we have, of course, like everyone, a LibGuide, which I can throw in the chat, which we send to people and link to about OER. We also are in the process of hiring a scholarly communication librarian. So, you know, this process might change or shift, and there might be more workshops based on that as well. I see that Dana said time is a big limiting factor. Yes. That's why I did, again, just wanted to show this Creative Commons license, how it's a quick thing of we as librarians can model to faculty in terms of like making it clear what our stuff is and linking to stuff on our LibGuide or et cetera.
Hey, Sam, one final question, if you have a second. I'm curious because I've heard of a lot of the ORE stuff on campus. I think you're right. It seems to be something that's talked about a great deal in the system. Do you know of any efforts within like the UNC system to address some of the, like, I feel like a lot of the campuses are doing things individually. Is there Do you know of anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, that NC Live OER initiative is for anything in North Carolina, even outside of the North Carolina system. Particularly, I think it's going to be great for a community college. So anyone in the UNC system can take a part of that. I dropped it in the chat. That is, again, similar to what I'm talking about, where they're offering money to faculty who are willing to kind of get the cost of textbooks down. And they hired a librarian who's going to help run that program. In terms of a UNC system, I mean, I know that Beth Bernhardt, who started the mini grants here at UNCG, has talked to the UNC system, and they're looking at the model of Georgia does a kind of more like full statewide initiative on OER. So those conversations are happening, but there's not something really in place yet. And I can drop a link to what they do in Georgia. Just find it on Google. Affordable learning, yeah.
Thank you. This is excellent.
Great. Are there any questions? And William or Will, he dropped a link to the OER guide from ECU talking about the UNC University Library Advisory Council. Yes, very great. So that's a great resource in terms of looking at the university-wide, what they're doing. Yeah, and see, they link here to a lot of these videos of the students talking about textbooks. I highly advise, like, if you have any kind of like digital media center on your campus or like any kind of video production center, that you look into making something like this. It's students being like, well, yeah, I like couldn't buy groceries some weeks because of textbooks, and like, you know, or I just won't buy them and I won't read them, and I'll like, you know, get a C in the class and float by. So to kind of hear the perspective from the students, right, and say like, you know, if we continue down this path of making them use these, you know, publisher-based textbooks, they're not going to read it. They're not going to use it, and they might even go hungry, you know. So using these kind of more empathy-driven marketing strategies is always a great strategy. And again, as librarians, kind of modeling that, making our stuff open as well. Okay, I feel like the silence means maybe people are ready to go. I don't know. April added, in South Carolina, we have SCALE, the South Carolina Affordable Learning, and she dropped a link there. That also looks great. Thank you. Yes, I like it.
All right, well, if there are no additional questions for our presenters, I want to thank them very much for their time and their efforts in planning these lightning round presentations, and I felt like both of them were excellent. I got a lot of great content out of it. This recording or this session, of course, is being recorded, so check back on the website. Kelly's going to be posting these sometime in the future, in the next week or so. Yeah, thank you very much to all the presenters, and if there are no other questions, I'll give you a few extra minutes to make it to your next session.
Thanks. Bye, Emery.
Bye, Sam.